All right, friends. Happy Friday. Happy, um, I was going to say Friday before Halloween. So, today we're going to have a discussion, a conversation. And the topic for the conversation is it's all about you. It's all about you. In general, everybody's tuned into the same station. Everyone's tuned into the same station. WIIFM. WIIFM. What do you think WIIFM stands for? What's in it for me? There's nothing wrong with this. This is how the separated self, this is how the egoic mind works. Everyone, while you're in the illusion, in the separated state, you are on what's in it for me. Everything in your life has to do with you. Has to do with you. Now, of course, I'm not talking about, of course, when you're altruistic or you're compassionate or whatever. We're not talking about that. But we're talking about here is the concept that there's always a subject and there's always an object. There's always a subject and there's always an object. What's the subject 100% of the time when you're in the separated state? You or you. So in the separated state or in the illusion, whatever, you deal with things consistently always from subject object, right? I see that, right? There's nothing wrong with any of the things that we're talking about. We're just going to have a discussion about this. So it's always subject object. There's Max speaking to you, right? There's Max drinking coffee. There's Max thinking. There's Max making a decision. There's Max speaking. Do you understand? This is why we're always on, I'm going to say it wrong, WIIFM. What's in it for me? Now, there is nothing, let me say it again, there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just the way it is, right? So everything is about you because everything is subject and object in the dream state. Now, when I always hesitate when I say when, because there's no time, but I will say it in the context of this conversation. When you begin to wake up from the dream state, the you begins to fall away. It seems to fall away. It apparently falls away. So this is one of the reasons why, whatever, when people become awake, you're already awake, but that's another conversation. When you begin to awaken from the dream state, from the illusion, from the game, there begins to get a sense of oneness that can come in a million different forms. Many people report having this overwhelming feeling or experience of being at one with everything. And I'm not talking about just a mystical experience, because you can have a mystical experience. There's nothing wrong with that. But coming from this place of there is the separation between you and others, between you and the coffee, between you and the pencil, between you and the camera, it begins to fall away. So that it isn't about you anymore. It's just what's happening. It's just what's happening. And it's happening almost to nobody, because when you begin, I will use the word when, even though there's no time, but for the context of this conversation, I'll use that. Because when you begin to wake up from the dream, the you that you thought you were when you were on WIIFM begins to evaporate. It begins to evaporate. All right, take a deep breath. There's more to say. There's a lot more to say about this, but I want to just see what people are getting right now. What are you thinking right now about this what's in it for me thing, the subject, object, everything is about you. while you're asleep. What are you thinking? Put it in the chat. Carol said, I would use the word like pivot, shrinks. In relationship to the experience that you have? Is that what you mean, Carol? You begin to pivot, shrinks, what the self, the separated self begins to pivot, or it shrinks. The ego, separated self, begins to pivot. Right, shrinks. Okay, that's interesting. That's cool. Okay. There's no right or wrong answer with any of this. It's just we're having a conversation, right? Lynn says, hi, Lynn. I think we're all a ripple of what we do affects others. Our energy, our essence is more than our ego. Yes. You're right, because everything is more than the ego, because the ego is not real. It's an illusion. It's a character that we've created. So as we've said here before, and actually I cut it and I put it on YouTube, are you the actor or the character? And someone asked me in the comments on that YouTube, what do you mean about the actor? Do you mean it's consciousness? And I said, yes, you could say it's consciousness itself. Could also say it's pure beingness. So the pure beingness is the only thing that's really real. The story of the character, because remember we're talking about you today, that story of the character is a story. It's like having a belief. The belief isn't real, it's just a belief. Right? Christine says there's a distinction between putting others first and needing to consider yourself and then the oneness in the world. Yes, and that's still right. There is definitely a distinction between all of those. And all of those, Christine, I would also say that all of those still have an element of object subject. Instead, you said the oneness with the world. But that's okay. No problem at all. So what happens is that this you becomes the basis for your beliefs. And what is what comes from your beliefs? Your actions. Actions always come from beliefs. You believe something, and then it is programmed into the brain to take an action in that direction that's in alignment with your beliefs. Now, a lot of people are trying to be in alignment. There's nothing wrong with any of this, but I would posit that you're already in alignment. You're in alignment with whatever you believe, right? Now, the you is going to say, okay, well, then that belief is not very good. So I'm going to change that belief. So I believe in red. Now I'm going to believe in blue because blue seems like a better belief, right? So no more red belief anymore, a blue belief. And then you'll believe blue and you will act from blue instead of acting from red, right? So it's like the negative and positive. Nothing is negative and nothing is positive. It is only how you believe and how you see it. You are the computer that is generating all of the things in your life based on the meaning you're giving to things. And that creates a belief, and that belief creates an action in the world, right? The world's not real anyway. So I would posit to you to consider, I say this all the time, what are you without your beliefs? There's no answer to that question. That's a contemplative, I always screw up with that word, contemplative question. What are you without your beliefs? Because what you are is a conglomeration of years of evaluation, contrast, taking one belief, letting one belief go. This is what the egoic mind does. That's it. So that's all based on subject object. Everything is about you. Everything's about you. And there is something else going on. Because if everything's about you, then everything's about Jane. Then everything's about Joe. Then everything's about Lisa. Then everything's about whatever. So there's all these universes of yous, of me's, running around, trying to, or reestablishing their own universe, right? Contemplate that for just a second. So what are you without your beliefs? Who are you without your beliefs? There's no answer to that. Take a deep breath. Let's look at the comments. Someone says, Carol says, without beliefs, a lump of clay. Lump of clay. Before it gets formed into a beautiful sculpture. So the game that's going on here is that the world is going to continue to convince you that you have to keep creating a sculpture out of your clay. Thank you, Carol. Over and over. So I'm not good enough here, so I make that one better. Then I'm not good enough here, so I'll make that one better. And I'm too good here, so I better bring it down. This is what the egoic mind does consistently and always. It's always jockeying for its position, jockeying for to be better, to be worse, and all of that stuff. That's all about you, the character. You don't like the character, change the character. That's okay, right? I didn't get enough education, and now I'm going to get enough education. That's nothing is wrong. I have to always say nothing's wrong with this at all. Because there could be, even when the separated self begins to fade away, they're still like, whoa, I want to learn about history. That sounds interesting. So learn about history. But it also could be, oh, I better learn about history because then people are going to think I'm smart. So I better do that. See the difference? That's from the separated ego. Lynn has something to say. Lynn, in living in this phase of my soul's evolution, I'm still living in duality today. It's all good. I have to pay my bills to stay in this. There's nothing I get that. So there's a belief. Let's just target this, not to pick on you, Lynn, because this is what we all do. So there's an obvious belief that if you let go of the character, you won't be able to pay your bills and survive. That's a belief that you own. Just you own it. Most people do. It's not the truth. It's just a belief. People will be like, you're insane. You have to have da-da-da-da. Do you? And goes, today I don't identify with my ego as I did. So this is what happens. This is what happens. Lynn, I know that you've been taking in and contemplating and letting go. This is what happens. It's normal. You know, in the Course in Miracles, it says time is a teaching tool. So in time, you will begin to see the game the ego is playing. That's all. Nina says, when something happens, I always either ask or think, how does this affect me? Should I think differently? You shouldn't do anything, first of all, Nina. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that that's actually probably at the beginning of going, what does this really mean? What is this really saying? What's going on here? Now, be careful because your ego is going to give you an answer. Be careful. But it doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to mean anything. We get into the character deeper when we have to keep creating meaning out of everything. What if it just was what it was? What if it was just, there was an accident? Okay. There was an accident. Full stop. Period. Didn't mean anything. Now, someone might say, I'm saying this is right or wrong. Oh, I got in an accident because I've been really feeling bad about myself, and I've been telling myself to slow down. So I got in an accident, and that means that the universe or God is telling me to slow the heck down. That's why I had the accident. Now, that is a meaning that you have created. That's a meaning. And there is always some kind of result from the meaning that you make. And that result is a belief, and that belief creates your action. So the next time that you go in the car, you're going to be like, I better be really healthy. I better really slow down. Nothing's wrong with that. It's just the way it works. Does that make sense, Nina? All right, everybody? Once again, if you're just coming in here, we're not trying to find a right answer or a wrong answer. It's not what we're doing. We're just having a talk about you and the you and what it does. It's very psychological. Anyone else want to say? Yes, you're welcome, Nina. And if you don't agree with me, I am completely open to being like, I don't believe anything you're saying. That's fine. But you can say that. You're welcome to have a real conversation here. I'm not just looking for yes people. That's not what I do. So continuing on that, when you understand this, thank you, Lynn. Continuing on this thing about you and about how we build beliefs and how we just change beliefs because our ego is telling us. Last week we had a discussion, or was it Monday, Wednesday? I don't know, about the war against yourself. That was from the Course in Miracles. So then that is the example of the war against the self. Oh, I've got to be this. Now I got to be this. Now I got to be this. Something's got to change here. I'm really good here, and this has to change. There's nothing wrong with any of this, but the war against yourself keeps us in a separated state. Lisa says, so the way I interpret changes my actions and future thought. Yeah, your perception. I think you're talking about your perception. If you change your perception, there's nothing wrong with that. It's going to change how you act and how you think if you change your perception. No doubt about it. In A Course in Miracles, it says that a miracle is a shift in your perception. So you always want to shift your perception. This is the beginning of beginning to wake up. Because if you're not, you just believe the perception you have, and that's just the way it is, because my mother told me, my culture told me, the world tells me that this is the way it is. And so you don't question, you just go along. So really, when you change your perception about something, just kind of like what I said with Lynn just now about this idea about, I could identify a belief for her right now that says that basically if the ego were to fall away, she wouldn't be making money. That's a very, very common perception. Now, that's not true at all, but it's a common perception. But if you change your perception, like maybe Lynn's perception shifted just a second, right, Lisa? So her interpretation changed of it. So possibly her actions and her future thoughts are going to change from now. I don't know, but it's possible. A Course in Miracles, I don't know if you all know me, but I've been a teacher and a student of A Course in Miracles for 40 years. So I kind of know it. And it says over and over and over again throughout A Course in Miracles in different ways that your actions are always based on your beliefs. So you always have to ask, what are you believing? It doesn't matter if that's a religion or a spiritual path. That is a very healthy psychological thing to do for yourself all the time. Wait a second, why do I believe this? And what actions and thoughts and feelings are coming from that belief? Christine says, lately the new phrase is not everything is about you. People use this as shaming. Oh, God, I know. I know this is supposed to be about egotistical people, but it isn't really always from our perspective. I am me. I understand that. The whole thing, it's not all about you. Well, nothing's either right or wrong. Nothing is either right or wrong. Nothing. It is what it is. It is what it is. So today's topic is it's all about you. Now, I could also make a topic and we could have a whole discussion how it's not about you. Because it's not about you. And you know why it's not about you? Because there is no you there. It's just a conglomeration of beliefs. That's what the you is. So I could make that, right? Well, the you doesn't like that. Doesn't like that at all, right? Lynn says, yes, I'm so much more peaceful now than I have ever been. When I start controlling any situation now, I'm not peaceful. That's right. Because you also realize, Lynn, that the little self can't control anything. So why try? I'm glad it's helpful, Lisa. Nothing. I'm going to quote, and then we're going to wrap up. I'm going to quote Shakespeare, my fave. I say it all the time. Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.